Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us, may he guide us and give us strength and right understanding. May love and harmony be with us all. Om, peace, peace, peace. And good evening. Sorry for the slight delay. Had a few technical problems setting up tonight. We are starting tonight with Swami Ramakrishnananda's complete works. But before we do that, I want to wish you a happy Vijaya greetings. And we're going to watch a couple of episodes from the oratorio that depicted the scenes from the Chandi. So we'll start with the scene where the various gods all combine their Shakti powers so that they can manifest the great Devi to defeat the Asura who has taken over.
Oh
so she battles the army, defeats the army, and then she has to defeat Mahisasura himself. Every time he changes form, the music changes key. So those who are familiar with the Chandi or at least the hymns from the Chandi, perhaps recognized a few of the phrases from the second of the hymns in those several last pieces, all the way from sing praises to Devi the mother, all the way through the end, and then the promise that she will answer the prayers, in which she does, of course, in the third whole section of the Chandi. That ends the second part of the Chandi. And then in the third part, of course, you have the other two extensive hymns. It starts with the famous Ya Devi. They're again in trouble, so they take her up on her promise and sing praises to her in the form of the Ya Devi hymn. And then she has to come solve those problems and slew a whole bunch of demons, a whole series of demons. All right, so today we're going to start with the lecture on enduring happiness by Swami Ramakrishnananda. Enduring happiness, not meaning you have to put up with it, but happiness that lasts. So, Atma, would you like to read for us?
Do your duty, never grow anxious, and do not think of the future. Whenever anxiety rises in you, you become an atheist. You do not believe in God and that He cares for you. If you have real faith in God, you can never grow anxious. No man, however, really disbelieves in God, for God is anandam, bliss, and everyone believes in happiness. Otherwise, why should everyone seek it? Why do men marry? Why do they try to earn money or to get name and fame? Because they believe that these things will make them happy, which shows that they have no doubt of the existence of happiness. And happiness is God, for He is the source of all bliss.
Yes, this idea of faith in God is, of course, very important, and it relates to the Chandi as well. They had faith in the Devi's words and sang hymns, and she again came and solved the problems. So that's an interesting way to put it. If you really have, if you don't have faith in God, then you're really kind of an atheist. And if you have anxiety, you have to realize it's either a lesson that you're supposed to learn, and somehow it's all going to work out. You just have to have the faith that it's going to somehow work out all for the best. All right, let's continue.
You think you are the son of Mr. So-and-so. This great blunder is the cause of all your miseries. You've not come from any man or woman. You are eternal, self-existent. This body is born, this body dies, but you're not born, you do not die. This is your false belief, which brings all your misery. So long as you believe this, fears and anxieties will come, and then you are an atheist. How can you say you believe in God when you claim that this man or that is your father? Does anyone say, my father is God? Christ could say that because he knew that God was his only father. You may say that you're a Christian or Hindu. You may think yourself religious, but you do not know the meaning of the word so long as your relation with man seems more real to you than your relation with God. Did not Christ say, he who loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me?
You know, it reminds me of how anxious some people get at finding their roots. You know, they have to find their roots. Or if they find that they're adopted, they have to find their real parents. And they want to know what their ancestry is. Do they have any DNA from this group of people or that group of people? And while that's all very interesting, it also is something we have to transcend and realize that all of that is really just part of Maya here. It's not our true nature. Our true nature is not this series of reincarnations from birth to birth. Our real nature is not that we're related to this group of people or that group of people. So we have to always keep that in mind. Okay.
But if we depend wholly on God, does he always answer our prayers? Of course he does, if we knew how to pray earnestly enough. A poor man goes to a rich man's house because he knows that the rich man can give him food. When he is told to go away, still he stands and waits. Even when someone insults him, he will not go until at last he is given food. So we must pray to God. If no answer comes, we must still keep on praying, and in the end, God is sure to hear us. Sometimes there's a desire in our heart, and God may counteract that desire to try our strength. We may long to be good, yet we are placed in the most evil environment, and we may think God wants to lead us into temptation. But he does this to test our desire for goodness. And if we prove it to be intense, then he will yield and place us in a good environment. First, there must be a clear understanding of the present conditions in which we have been placed by God. It is a fact that we desire to be happy, but the things we covet for our happiness will make us happy only for a time. So we must learn to seek for happiness in the permanent and enduring. That this world is not truly real, I can prove it to you in a few minutes. All memory exists in the mind. The mind indeed is made up of memory. Therefore, all the past exists in the mind. Only the present exists in the senses. But how long does any sense perception last? Just the point of time when the object comes in contact with the sense organ. Then at once it becomes a matter of memory. Now this point of time, like Euclid's geometrical point, actually has no magnitude. The present, in reality, is only such a point without dimensions. Man, however, because he wishes to live in his senses, magnifies this point and extends it to the present age or the present time, or to nowadays, which means these few months or years. But actually the present has no conceivable existence, and only the past and future have duration. And as these exist in the mind, the whole of the universe may be said to live in mind.
And that's, of course, a good point, is sometimes we may pray for something, and then when we get it, we wonder why we prayed for it. Things don't, we don't anticipate all the extra ramifications that come along with whatever it was we were praying for. Of course, there's the famous story that I won't go into all the details about the people that wanted prettier noses and ended up with a whole face full of noses and then ended up having to go back to their original nose. So sometimes we think we know what we want, but probably the safest prayer is just for God to give us the wisdom to know why it is we're getting what we're getting and to have the wisdom to learn from it and to accept it and not be anxious about it and guide us through it. All right, let's...
When a man's thought turns away from the universe, it ceases to exist for him. This is proved when he is sound asleep. That time he goes away from his mind and senses. He does not remember that he has a wife or child, that he owes money, that he possesses a house or a garden. All these have ceased to exist for him. Only when he wakes up does he gradually remember them and his anxieties return. This shows that these anxieties only exist in the mind. They have no real existence outside. When a man once understands this, he ceases to care for this mirage of the mind or for this mirage of the senses. The whole mirage of creation then appears to him hollow and meaningless, and nothing in it can disturb him. When a man rises above his mind, he grows calm, quiet, free. This is his natural condition. Otherwise, he would not feel at rest in it. We see when we wake from sound sleep how rested and strong we feel and ready for fresh effort. This shows that it is natural for us to live beyond our mind and senses. But the sense pleasures of this world have cheated us into believing that our real place is here.
Yeah, these are very short little sections that he has. They're called particulars. So there's a whole group of particulars of short little lectures that may be 2-3 pages long. They couldn't be whole lectures. They must just have been perhaps, I don't know what they were, Anyway.
Particular pieces of lectures.
Yeah, particular pieces of lectures, or maybe little articles or things that they extracted from one place or another. But anyway, that's a good point about how we, if we can forget about our anxieties, and sometimes we deliberately try to forget our anxieties by maybe going to a movie, or people will try to distract us with some pleasantries or something, or taking us out to dinner, and to try to get our mind off of our difficulties. So that's all of this is very good advice that he gives. There's a very short one on the guru, and we've got plenty of time, so let's continue with the guru.
If we are caught in a labyrinth and someone comes and says, "I can show you the way out," what do? Follow him? And the gratitude we feel is what we call worship and devotion. This person is the guru, and we should follow him implicitly if we want to escape from the labyrinth. Sometimes, however, we think, "Oh, why should I follow him? Let me find my own way." So we go off by ourselves, but he's always so patient and loving that he waits until we grow weary trying to find the way alone and come back to him.
How many here have ever walked a labyrinth? Anybody walked a labyrinth? A couple of you? Good, yeah. So, yeah, it's an interesting experience. I mean, there's kind of a whole science to it, a whole metaphor of what you're doing. I don't know how deeply they went into it, if you had somebody guiding you, if you're just doing it on your own. But we had a devotee here that did that for a while as a living. She had a big portable one that she had a big canvas, and she spread it out in the parking lot and let people do it. But it's a kind of meditative walk. And one of the things that you're supposed to remember is that getting to your goal isn't always a straight line. You often have to double back and make turns and make changes and so forth. But eventually, in the labyrinth, you always get to the center. It's not like a maze. A maze, you hit a whole bunch of dead ends, and then you have to switch back and try again. But a labyrinth, you always end up making it to the center, even though it seems like you may be kind of off track somewhere. And that's a very Vedantic idea, that everybody makes it to the end, no matter how circuitous their path seems to be. Okay, there's just one other short paragraph here.
The work of the guru is done in a very few minutes. By a few simple words, the guru gives a new turn to the life, just as when a man is riding a bicycle. Someone sees that the road he is taking will lead to danger, so he turns him around and starts him in another direction. The man keeps on pedaling as before, and the bicycle keeps on moving. But now the man is moving away from danger instead of toward it. Similarly, the guru sees that the direction you have taken is dangerous, so he turns you around. All your activities may go on as before. You may keep on pedaling just the same, but now you are riding in a safe direction. The guru's work is to give the turn in the right direction.
Very good. I know there's going to be some initiations tomorrow, so congratulations ahead of time getting initiation. All right, so we can continue with self-surrender. This says it was a class talk, so it's a little longer than some of the others, but we may still be able to read a lot of it, so let's continue.
By prayer alone can we hope to rid ourselves of egotism. But when we pray and still ego remains, is it because our prayers do not reach God? No, God hears even the feeblest cry of the heart, for he is everywhere, but he knows that we are not ready. Through constant earnest praying, however, we gradually make ourselves ready. Could not God make us ready at once? Surely, but he's so infinitely loving, he does not wish to molest us. So long as he sees that we really want to rule ourselves, he does not come. Only when we have realized our own utter nothingness, when we feel ourselves more worthless than the dust there on the road, and we say to God, I'm absolutely incapable of ruling my own life. Please come and occupy the throne. I give everything over to thee. Then God comes and the ego goes away. We must not, however, bribe the mind. We must not merely pretend to be humble, like a man who is very meek before a great man, but will lord over the servant in his own house, because there he is the master. We must literally feel that we are no better than the pariah. Sri Ramakrishna felt this, so he could go and sweep the outhouse of a pariah. He could become the scavenger of a scavenger. Only into such a heart does the Lord come, but the feeling must be absolutely sincere. No fraud or bribery. Socrates knew his own worthlessness, and that was what made him a wise man.
You know, even Swami Ramakrishnananda, when he started the center, the work wasn't growing very much, and then he realized he had to just depend on Maharaj, Swami Ramananda, his guru, and Thakur, and make it their work. This was their work, and if it was to grow, it was to be done by them. And then the work started to grow. So just by that simple change in mental attitude, there was a change in the way the work grew. All right, let's continue.
At present, we have too much faith in our own powers. And so long as this remains, the ego will sit on the throne, and God will wait until we ourselves drive it off. Now we only trust God partially. We think we can do many things better ourselves. We may say, "Oh God, please write this letter." But all the time we believe that we can write it a little better than He, so we do not entrust it entirely to Him. When, however, we can give up everything to Him, then we shall see how well He will serve us. For He says that of such devotees, He actually becomes the servant. Then is there any place for individual struggle? Individual struggle leads to self-surrender. Until that comes, we have to struggle. My master, Sri Ramakrishna, used to say that a man must keep on fanning so long as the breeze does not blow. But when that begins to blow, then a fan is no longer necessary. So a man must struggle until self-surrender comes to him. Arjuna asked the same question in the Gita. If surrender is better than action, then why do you push me on to this terrible action, in which I shall have to slay my guru, my own grandfather, and my relations? Sri Krishna replies, you must work in order to learn that work is useless. If I tell you, you will not believe it. You must find it out for yourself.
You know, there's that old song, I can do anything better than you can. I can do anything better than you. Well, you turn that around. You can do anything better than I can. You can do anything better than I. So that's our attitude that we have to remember. Sorry, I can't carry the tune very well. All right, let's continue a little more.
Only when we learn this do we give up. So long as we think that anything can be gained by individual effort, we keep on working. Mani Malak, who used to come to Sri Ramakrishna, once told us how for years he struggled to make his chandelier business a success. But all his efforts ended in failure until one day, after a last desperate attempt, it seemed as if ruin must overtake him. And he sat down and began to weep, saying, Lord, if it is thy will to ruin me, let it be so. I've done all I could. Now I turn everything over to thee. Do with me whatever thou wilt. And almost that very hour, affairs took a new turn, and he became a prosperous merchant. A man must give up everything to God, and then only he thrives. That all this human effort leads to nothing, we see plainly enough in the world. The same struggle has been going on from the beginning of creation, and it has kept the world just where it is. It has not been able to lift it 1 inch. Why? Because the world rests on lust and greed. Lust and greed rest on the ego. And all this struggle comes from the ego. Swami Vivekananda was perfectly right when he said, work never helps the world. It only helps the man himself. And how does it help him? By teaching him that it is utterly useless, that God is the only worker.
You know, when I write something like that oratorio, and then I listen to it and I think, how did I think of that? I don't remember writing that. How did I get that idea? And of course, it's not me. It's something else is coming through when it's any good. Brahms said that too. He said if he really wanted to write something good, he had to connect to his maker. He was not known for being religious. He was probably one of the early, spiritual but not religious. You'd more often find him in the pub than in the church. But when he was writing music, he had a very spiritual attitude to it and knew that it was coming from a divine source. Okay.
The man who can throw himself at the feet of the Lord, saying from his heart, O Lord, all this is thine. This body, mind, and soul belong to thee. Of myself I am helpless. I am nothing. Do thou take me. Then at once the Lord says, very well, I take you. Your body, mind, and soul are mine. Then he makes the hands his hands. He makes the feet his feet. He makes the tongue his tongue. He eats through that mouth. He speaks through those lips. He thinks through that mind. He acts through those hands and feet. And that man becomes a living God.
Sort of like Girish giving his power of attorney over to Sri Ramakrishna. And so then Ramakrishna is the power behind everything he does and is responsible for it. Okay. Got one more paragraph, and that may be it for tonight.
But we must not have a hazy idea about God. Now we think that this wall is real, that boy is real, but God is something vague and indistinct, far off above the clouds. This is altogether false. If there's anything hazy, anything vague, anything uncertain and precarious, it is we ourselves, and God is the only certain thing in the universe. Therefore, when we surrender ourselves to God, we must know that He is a real being. If we place a picture or an image on our altar, we must not think of it as a picture or an image. We must feel that God Himself is there. This we must clearly understand. Otherwise, self-surrender will never be possible for us. And through self-surrender alone can we hope to reach God. The moment we can surrender ourselves completely, at that very moment, humility will come, realization will come, God vision will come.
Of course, we have great examples with some of the direct disciples as well, like Swami Vivekananda when he arrived in Chicago and had absolutely no connections, nowhere to go, and somebody just appears. And there are other incidences where they didn't have anything to eat, and then suddenly someone appears, or they're missing something for a puja, and suddenly somebody shows up and brings it. So when you can really have that complete dependence on God, on the Lord, the things will come when they are appropriate to come. And it's sometimes very difficult to keep that in mind, but I think that's the essence of what we're all working for, to become more and more mindful of that idea, and to give more and more of our recognition to the fact that it's God doing everything. God is doing everything through us. We're just the instruments. And of course, that's another way to pray, is just make me an instrument, Lord, of your work. Just make me an instrument. All right, let's close with a chant. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is. From Brahman all, yet is it still the same. Om, peace, peace, peace.